Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Sandra Gabriel here with another episode of PR Facts. Thank you so much for tuning in to the broadcast today. So I'm talking about how we're going to use PR to build your brand, and I highly and strongly suggest that you do not start any kind of marketing or any kind of PR without first trying to build relationships. I apologize for the phone ringing. You know how busy it is in PR. So, the first thing I want to talk about is the relationship that you're going to be building in order to build your brand. Because you cannot have a brand if you do not build relationships. And I always say you can't build relationships without communications. So, the graphic that you saw at the beginning of this broadcast is pretty much what we're going to be going over for PR Facts today. So, let me see if I can turn around the screen. So this right here is your public map. I don't know if you could see it clearly, but this is a little graphic I created in 2010 to give an example of the different kinds of groups that can surround your business. And branding is all about, the perception and the relationships that you have with each one of these groups. So social media groups, that's, your Facebook, your Twitter, and it could be Facebook groups. It could be LinkedIn groups. You have to think about what kind of relationship do you want to build with these groups, and how are you going to build a relationship with them? And when it comes to social media, in my opinion, the easiest thing to do is to share your expertise, share your thought leadership, but also find some relatable factor so that people can see you as an open source that they can come to for information or anything to do with your products and services. So you might share articles, you might share videos, you might even share articles from other brands who are relevant, maybe not direct competitors, but other brands that are relevant. So you want to make sure that you have a good bit of content to share with your social media groups, because this is where you're going to do most of your positioning as a brand. The next one is nonprofit or community groups. So, and before I go any further, I should say that maybe you're not going to tackle all of these groups, but at least choose a good 2 or 3 to start with. And even that may be much. I mean, you can go at your own pace, but choose a good 2 or 3 to start with. And from there, you can think about strategy of how you're going to build relationships with them. So in the nonprofit community, you can think of charities as well and other causes that you wanted to be tied to your brand. So let's say you sell apples, for example. You might want to connect with a nonprofit group that is interested in health and nutrition, and then see what kind of a partnership you can build with them. Do some research on them first. I always tout research as the number one thing that you should always start with, no matter what you're doing with your branding. Do some research on them first. See who it is you need to connect to. Create a really nice, good outreach letter, and see what you can do to start building a relationship with nonprofit groups and tie it to some kind of cause that your brand can be related to. Because again, not all marketing is direct marketing. You're not always trying to sell to people, but when it comes to branding, you want to show people the different sides of your business and the different ways that you're connected to communities and to different customers, and all the products and services that you sell are one thing, but you really have to show another side of you, because at the end of the day, people are not going to be wholly and fully interested in just your products and services. You have to show a well-rounded view of your business. So there's the nonprofit community. Then you have local, regional, international communities. So that's kind of broad, but if you're looking at just local and regional, and a lot of people tend to overlook their local community, but that's pretty much where it all starts. That's where you want to plant your seed and grow from there. And if you're studying media relations in any way, you'll learn that local media is always looking for great news stories on what's going on with people in their community. So reach out to local media, local influencers, and then maybe try to reach out to the international community. See who might be, across the shores, who's doing something similar to you that you can create a partnership with, and it's yet another way that you're getting your brand name out there. The next one, I'm going down this way, clockwise. The next one is media. So of course, in PR, there has to be a media component. And, with this, it's all about thinking of a strategy of what you're going to communicate to media. So with my business, every month, I try to come up with stories, myself and my client, we try to come up with stories that we're going to be pitching to media. And we want to have something new that's relevant to them as well. So you're not always telling the same story, but you're trying to think of, well, what's another story I can tell them that they would be interested in? And that's yet another communication that you're going to be using is your pitching, your pitches or your press releases to send out to media so that, again, you're building a relationship with them. The next group is partners, sponsors, and vendors. So, of course, sponsors are more relevant if you're having some kind of an event, but you can get them to support you in things like, again, if you're the Apple seller, then you might get a sponsor to help you in some nutritional initiative. Oh, thank you, Blinged Feathers. You might get a partner or sponsor to support you in some nutritional initiative that they might want to be a part of. And if you let the partner or the sponsor know that, okay, we reach out to several social media groups, we work with several nonprofit groups, we have a huge media campaign planned for this year where we're targeting 60 media outlets. I mean, I wouldn't advise 60. I think you should always take it slow and one at a time if you can. But, create a good case to show the partner or sponsor that you have a great outreach campaign coming this year. And then once they see the extent of your reach, that's something that they're going to want to support. So think about your partner and sponsor relationships as something that's key in getting like an ambassador or someone on board who's also going to help in endorsing you. The next group is your industry and your competitors. So I once heard a term called co-opetition. So we're not really thinking about competition, but we're thinking of people who work in a similar field that can kind of we can leverage our brand with theirs. So when you're thinking about industry, you're thinking about what's going on as a whole in the industry, who else is doing what I'm doing. Is there any information that we can glean from them? Is there any information that we can share with them? You might also think of them as partners as well, because if they're doing something similar to you, there's also going to be a part where you think about, well, how can we work together to promote this cause of health and nutrition? So maybe you're not promoting, apple selling because that's your thing, but you're about promoting health and nutrition. And again, positioning yourself as a thought leader or as a staple in that industry as someone who's in health and nutrition based on, the products and services that you sell. The next one, most important, of course, is your consumers and your clients. You definitely want to build a relationship with them in terms of building your brand. And that could vary depending on what your product or your service is. But it's always about thinking about what do we want to say to our consumers and clients? What do we need to say to them? If you do your research on them, you'll know way more about them than if you just say, well, I have a product, let me just go, sending them all kinds of information and sales tactics to be able to get them to buy my product or service. Think about, if you do a full review of who your customer is, you might find, I always use this example if you've been on other scopes, I always use the example of, the customer who likes Starbucks. So maybe part of your plan is to go into a Starbucks and hold a seminar there, or maybe you want to post up something on their corkboard about, your products or services, or a great initiative that you're doing with another nonprofit community in the local area that you can send a press release to the media about. You see how it could all kind of connect. And again, like I've said before, it's all about getting your brand out there into as many different spheres as possible. So the next one may not apply to everybody. It's more in the corporate world if you have shareholders and board of directors. So the main communication with them is, it's more investor relations. So you might send them your annual report as a part of communication to show them, here's how we're doing in our business. But if you have shareholders in your business, that might be a little more meticulous because they want specific sets of information, but you still, keep them updated put them all on your newsletter if you need to, keep them updated on what's going on in the business so that they can continue to support your business. The other part is employees. So employees are, again, if you have, I would say anywhere from even just one employee, you have to make sure that you're keeping them engaged and you're keeping them motivated. And it doesn't take just money to keep employees motivated. From research, we know that employees like to hear that they're doing a good job. They like to know that you're supporting them in the work that they're doing. So, it's about figuring out some program where you're constantly engaging them, whether you're doing trainings, whether you're having retreats, management meetings, things like that, you're keeping them engaged and you're constantly filling them in on updates of the company. They have to be updated on the company at all times because we don't know if a journalist is going to approach them out of the blue and start asking questions about the company. You got to find ways to keep open communication with them so that relationship is building on a positive note as well, and so that they're prepared to speak on any level about your business. The next group and final group is the government. So that is more for people in regulated fields. You might want to consider, especially health and nutrition. There's all kinds of regulations with food and drink. So, what kind of communication and what kind of relationship are you building with them? Some people would go as far as to lobby, they hire lobbyists, which is another form of PR, who, goes down to Capitol Hill or wherever it is. And, they are on the steps waiting for the key officials so that they can talk to them about, here's a new initiative that we want to propose to keep people healthy, or a new initiative that we want to propose to get people eating more healthier or thinking about eating more healthier. So that's another relationship that you can build with your business. So these are all basically the groups, and I'm sure there's more groups. You can break each one of these down into even more micro groups. But the whole point of the matter when it comes to using PR for your brand, it's all about the relationships. And the key thing in relationships is that nothing happens overnight. You have to think about any relationship that you want to build. You have to take your time. You have to get to know who the person is. You got to even dress up for the ball. You got to make your brand look like a brand that these groups are going to want to work with. So that's it for my scope today. Hopefully you've gotten some good insight from today's scope. Don't forget, PR Life is now live on sandragabriel.com. If you just go to my website, sandragabriel.com, and click on PR Life in the menu, you'll find everything there that you need to know about starting to build your brand, connect with the media, and grow your following. And lastly, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Do a search for Sandra Gabriel, and there I'll be. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and Happy New Year. Sorry I couldn't be here to do a scope last week, but I'm glad you joined me today. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, happy new year, prosperous new year. Let this be a year that, you finally bring your brand to fruition. Feel free to send me an email. Send me an email to pr@gabrielpr.ca. Let me know how you're doing in building your brand, and we'll see how we can work together, and maybe we can bounce some ideas off of each other and see how we can get you to meet your brand goals for the year. All right? Thanks for tuning in. Ciao.